Hello and welcome to the Walk and Love podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Brooke.
And today we are going to take stock of 2022 and project into 2023. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us a part of your week. And thank you for making us a part of your last year. This podcast is the first episode of 2023.
That date sounds very futuristic
like we're in
to
the
me.
Future. Welcome to the future.
Like I remember Y2K, and I remember
Wow.
I would have been.
Wow.
Here we go.
Okay.
Y2K talk. I would have been in 8th grade,
Okay.
I believe.
right.
So I was homeschooled.
Nick was graduating from high school. He's a class of 2000. So I was in 9th grade.
Okay, so I would have been in 8th grade, I believe.
Frosted tips on the wrestling team.
Wow.
No, they didn't frost the tips. Eventually they were, but we bleached, every starter bleached their hair. And
Camaraderie.
It was for camaraderie, except when I did it, I had a bunch of cuts on the back of my neck. And so I told Nick that it was burning, but he was like, no, it didn't burn. Suck it up, which is like not like my brother to do.
No, especially that's not like Nick at all.
And then like after it dried, he like saw these like blisters on the back of my neck. Oh yeah, it might have been burning.
Anyway, I remember going to Old Navy, and I was with my cousin Kate, and we were still in a phase where when we would see each other, we'd be like, let's get semi-matching outfits.
Right.
Not literally identical, but like we would go to Gap or Old Navy or wherever, and it's like if they had the same shirt, but one was kind of pink and one was kind of blue, I'd get the pink version, she'd get the blue version. So we went to Old Navy.
Is this when you were listening to Josh Groban or separate?
Well, no, separate, because I would have been driving by then.
Yeah.
I was not driving in 8th grade.
So,
I mean, I was advanced, but I wasn't driving in 8th grade. I remember going, and I got this long sleeve pink shirt, light pink, super light pink, and in glitter letters, like what would you call that when they print with the
sequence?
No. Like it's like almost like a glitter puff ink, like a puff ink. Okay. There you go. I was hoping you would know that. It said Y2K girl.
We've never done glitter puff ink.
No, but we've.
But maybe 2023 is the year for that.
Year. It said Y2K girl. And I remember it. I wore it all the time.
Amazing. We have a different Y2K story in my family. My dad was convinced the world was ending. Mm-hmm. And so he built Y2K shelves that are still referred to that to this day in our basement to stock food. And then he dug a hole in our backyard and buried a kerosene container that you would have to like roll the top off of and like use this like, hand pump thing to get the kerosene out into the kerosene.
What is the point? I know he's going to text me and answer this.
Yes.
What is the point of burying it versus just putting it on your back porch?
I don't know. Maybe torturing your children. I don't know. I think he was worried that
people were going to steal it.
The lawlessness of the land would cause bandits to roam in Lidditz, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he was just ready, prepared.
Yeah.
Not with weapons, but just with a kerosene.
I'm team prepared.
Yeah.
Although
we got the food, the whatever the food is that you have.
You mean literally us, me and you? I thought you meant we as in your family.
No, we have it.
That was you. That was your like. What do you lay awake about? No, what was the question?
It's like what
keeps you up at night?
What keeps you up at night? That like it's totally ridiculous, but if you did
but
something
I think about it
to prevent it, it would stop. And that was mine. Like just like extra food, like
emergency food.
Emergency food.
Yeah.
So we bought some.
Yeah.
What else keeps me up at night lately is a shark attack.
Oh man, we have not told our kids about this.
That we go to, and we won't.
No, I won't.
So
hopefully nobody else does.
Yeah, it's not funny at all. It's terrifying, but. This woman was killed by a shark at the beach that we go to.
The beach we go to every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
Yeah. Which again is very rare.
Very super rare. Like
sharks are not on our side of the island, really, unless you're way, way, way out in the water. Who can swim that far?
There's more of a likelihood that you would die from sitting under a coconut tree
and waiting for one to fall on your head and hit you hard enough to kill you.
Yeah.
That's more likely than getting eaten by a shark.
Than getting killed.
Or even attacked
by a shark. But man, when we found out about it, I like had trouble falling asleep the night that I found out about it.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think it's because I don't think. I know it's because it's at the beach we feel so like comfortable with.
Yeah.
If they were like shark attack on whatever, and I'm like, oh, I've never been to that side of the island, it doesn't connect with me.
But yeah, the story was that she was snorkeling, but she was like 75 to 50 to 75 yards out,
too far
from the
out
shore.
to be snorkeling.
And yeah, there was a tiger shark out there, and it killed her.
Yikes!
So
spikes.
It like so sad, but also like it kept me up. Like I
thought about it more than I thought I would.
I thought about it a lot, which was like kind of spooky. And then I'm just like, again, like I just kept reminding myself that like it would be like getting hit by lightning. Like if someone died by getting hit by lightning, you would be like, that's crazy.
That's crazy. That's totally a freak accident.
That's a freak accident. It's so unlikely that
you wouldn't be like, well, why were you standing outside?
Right.
You know?
But I think because we swim at that beach so often, it like if someone got hit by lightning on our street, I guess I wouldn't feel like, oh man, that's going to happen to me then. The ocean.
More so though, I think you would.
Maybe.
Like when something goes bad in your town, you're like, is this town more likely for this to happen?
See, I don't think that way.
Oh.
But the water element, because it's
the ocean is spooky.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And it's amazing. It's powerful. It's wonderful.
But it's powerfully spooky.
There are elements of it that can be spooky. And that one definitely spooked me.
Noogle.
So
someday to be described like that.
Y2K to tiger sharks. That's where we are.
Spooky.
That's where we're kicking off 2023. But it does feel good to be back. We're back on the podcast. We're back on YouTube. We're not sick anymore.
Is that a question?
It's just
we're
amazing.
Not sick anymore? Is that right?
So thank you for bearing with us as we dealt with sickness and just like the off and on of it and like never being able to line up. I feel like we were pretty consistent in 2022 until that moment on the podcast.
Especially the second half when I could talk.
Yeah. And so I think 2023 is like, I'm hoping and believing that it's going to be our most consistent year ever for the podcast.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like at the end of the year, my hope is like, we actually averaged 1 point something episodes a week. I'm not going to say we're going to average 2 episodes a week.
Please don't.
But I do want to figure out a way to do bonus episodes for subscribers, because I think that would be super fun. I'm thinking that would be like more Q&A based. I don't know, but I'm very excited for the podcast. And then also in 2023, we're going to start sponsoring the podcast. I did air quotes. If you're not watching, we're going to sponsor our episodes with ways that you can support us or support the podcast. So this might be like a direct call to action to buy t-shirts when collections are coming out, or something that Brooke's doing or whatever. So this episode today is sponsored by Tiny Rhythms. Tiny Rhythms is a new business that we've started to give parents a simple tool that will make a big difference. Tiny Rhythms is a tool that created to help your kids develop healthy, strong rhythms at a young age, because the flow of your day is more important than you think. Tiny Rhythms is available at tinyrhythms.com, and the first batch will start shipping in January 2023. Learn more at tinyrhythms.com or follow us on Instagram at Tiny Rhythms.
Nice.
It sounded like real official, didn't it?
I know. I was ready to read it.
So
I was excited.
Oh, you wanted to read it?
That's fine.
Okay. Well, I don't know. There's no Brooke on it. So
you made the notes.
I did. Maybe I need to bulge your. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to give it a shot?
No, I'm not going to reread it. Maybe I'll read next week.
Okay. So that's just a way that you guys can support the podcast, and we appreciate it. So before we get into our travel recap, I do have a song of the week for the worship playlist. I'm going to try to, again, 2023 is going to be our consistent year. I'm going to try to add a song of the week every week. Not both playlists, but at least one of the playlists.
Yeah.
So Nightbird, who we've added to the regular playlist a bunch of times. She was on America's Got Talent, had won a Golden Buzzer, but like had severe illness, cancer, like just all sorts of things that ailed her. And then she passed away last year.
Yeah.
And so they've been releasing some of her recordings as like
after she's
passed. And so this is one of them. And this one is like
this is on the worship list.
Worship playlist, but it's like so powerful in terms of like knowing.
Like this came out after she's already with Jesus.
Yeah. And she's writing it while she knows that's coming.
Oh yeah.
The hour is dark and it's hard to see what you are doing here in the ruins and where this will lead. Oh, but I know that down through the years, I look on this moment and see your hand on it and know you were here. And I'll testify of the battles you won, how you were my portion when there wasn't enough.
So if you want to weep openly,
so
I would recommend that song this week.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like going through it. Like, you know, I think it's an encouraging song for someone who's like just in it, you know?
Yeah.
So we're back. Brooke, how was your travel? Hit us with the highlights, things you thought about, challenges, and then I'll go and finish with a story that had Brooke laughing so hard she was wheezing. Like
I was crying.
Wheezing.
In bed, trying to be quiet because kids were asleep in the room.
So I'll finish with that story. So don't tell that story.
I won't tell that story. I'll loop around to it. Travel was good. I feel like it actually was.
100%.
Like the flights were smooth. Like well, not just like literally turbulence wise, but like
although on the way back,
there was quite a bit of turbulence on the way back, which was like crazy. Daisy was into it.
Yeah, she loved it.
Thought she was on a ride. But yeah, I feel like travel was good. I really enjoyed stopping in California.
Yeah.
On our way across the country. I mean, one, we have your sister to stop with and stay with and see and meet the baby and like all fun things. Yep. It wasn't just like a random stop in California. I don't know if I would have enjoyed that as much.
Right.
Like let's get a hotel and stop halfway. But it was really, really fun. And then of course we got to do Disney while we were there, which was extra fun. I said to you, and I kind of laughed at myself when I said it, like I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And that seems silly because that sounds like I'm saying I thought I wouldn't enjoy it, which is not true. Yeah. I knew I would enjoy it. But
you always keep those expectations pretty low.
I do. And it was like, 3 kids napping in strollers.
Guarded.
Yeah. Holding on to, because what if I run out of coins?
Yeah.
What if we run out of coins at Disney? That could be bad. Everything's expensive. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, our kids are still all 7 and under, and it's like I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, but it was really fun. We stayed way longer into the night than I thought we would.
We left the park at like 11:30.
Yeah. By the time, but the 2 littles were asleep in the stroller.
Yep.
While June was picking out her final toy, literally at like 11:30.
Yep.
Because she had saved it till the end of the day to choose. But yeah, the travel part was good and I was pleased and it made me feel like, okay, we can do this. It's like every time we travel, even when it goes poorly, it still feels like a notch on the whatever of like, we did it and we can do it again.
Yeah. We remember the lion and the bear of that flight, so we can do it again. Yeah. I would say like the wild card in travel is always the smallest baby. Yeah. Like, there's a 0 to 9-ish months, 10 months, 11 months that like babies are easy to travel with. Like they'll sleep the whole time or they'll
infants or
like,
smaller.
You hold them and they're used to that. And so like, that's the reality. And then once they start walking, which I think can happen, anytime 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever, like depending on your kid, that's when they become wild cards as travel because now they can move and now they're not satisfied with
I don't want to sit here
staying in one place. And so Daisy was the wild card. As chill as she is, it's like she walks basically all day long in our house. Like she walks and picks up things and throws remotes in the trash can and puts her toys in our shoes and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's fun to watch. And so she was the wild card. But when Brooke left for the trip to see her dad's concert, Daisy and I stayed here. Mm-hmm. And that was a bonding moment for us. Daisy and I
mean, she's always loved you and like but you are now the preferred parent.
We're homies. Yeah. And so I held her on the plane the whole time. And when I say held, I mean, I sat in a coach seat, and she stood on my knees and waved to the people behind us
or in front of us.
And then flipped around and waved to the people in front of us. and I just kind of like made sure she didn't fall.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first time she had to fall asleep, like, was probably the roughest. Like our kids aren't really snuggly babies.
No,
they don't fall
they
asleep
don't
in our
sleep
arms
on us
very often. But then as every trip she got it was a little bit quicker, but like,
I do feel like she started to be like, oh, okay, this is what I do here. I'm going to fall asleep on you and then
but
be
it was
fine.
funny, like after traveling with her and like kind of just holding her on my knees while she stood, I was like so sore, like right at the top of my shoulders, just from like
the balancing
of her. But she did awesome. And that was just like because like next
that was a huge relief.
Yeah, because like this will probably be the hardest year to travel with her, because like, you know, the kids' ability to watch a movie is so helpful on an airplane.
Yeah.
And so like we have the rule, watch as many as you want, eat as many snacks as you want on an airplane. Like we'll just, you know, we just want to
survive in a good way.
Yeah.
Not in like a desperation way, but you just like, why have all these arbitrary rules on an airplane?
Yeah. Are you going in order in your recap, or are we just talking travel right now?
I was just talking travel.
Like, can I talk about travel on the way back?
I guess. I don't know what you're about to say. So sure.
So all the travel went well. The only hiccup was when we were leaving Pennsylvania, our flight was delayed from Harrisburg to Chicago. So we went Harrisburg, Chicago, LA, Maui. And so it's being delayed, and like we have seats it was
delayed for too much luggage.
Yeah, there were too many bags. And he's like, the pilot's like, they're still loading bags.
I've literally never had this happen. I don't know what to say to you.
Yeah. And so
there's too many bags.
And then he's like, oh, looks like they got another helper down there, so that might speed things up. And so we were delayed, and like it was funny. They made this announcement like, if your final destination is Chicago, please remain seated so people with tight connections can get off the airplane.
Yeah.
And we're like sort of towards the back.
Very towards the back.
And I think like 4 people remained seated.
Yes.
Like, I mean, Chicago, if you're flying on United, Chicago is like their main hub. And
right. So a lot of connections probably.
That's like where most of their connections go through. And so it's middle of the country, obviously, like middle-ish of the country. And so like literally everybody stood up. So we're still just trying to get through. And then we have our original layover was like an hour and a half.
Right.
And now it was like 20 minutes.
Yes.
Before our flight started
and
boarding.
We had to switch terminals.
B to C.
Which wasn't too far.
So if you've been in Chicago, you got to go downstairs through that like light tunnel
with the cool lights above you.
And so
and then back up out the other side.
And then back out the other side. So we start sprinting. Girls have to pee, obviously.
Literally sprinting.
We have Daisy in the stroller. Sunny is sitting on the front of the stroller. It's
we like took off the food tray of the jogging stroller, put it up top. So Daisy could sit with her legs spread apart. Yep. And Sunny could kind of sit in her leg lap. We got
bags stuffed under the stroller, and then I am carrying other bags. June is running bagless.
Yes.
And I think Brooke has a backpack on. She's pushing the stroller. So June is doing her best to keep up. Then we get to the stairs where we have to go down through the tunnel. But I know the airport well, but not super well. So I don't know where the elevator is.
Yeah, that elevator was closed.
So
because it was open on the other side.
So we get the kids out of the stroller. Brooke carries Daisy.
I take all the kids down the escalator with backpacks.
And I carry the stroller and like
a whole unit of a stroller
and bags down the steps. I get down the steps before they get down the escalator, open the stroller, stuff the bags back under, put Daisy back in the stroller.
And then June's
like, I can't run anymore. Let me sit on the front. So June sits on the front. I throw Sunny over my shoulder like I'm
literally
fireman's carrying her.
Yeah.
And we just sprint down the hallway full speed. We know where the elevator is on the other side. So we get in the elevator, we go upstairs, we run down to our gate. Thankfully, it hasn't started boarding yet. And so Brooke's like, I need to go to the bathroom. All the girls need to go to the bathroom.
Go so badly.
So they go to the bathroom. We're, because we have a kid under 2, we're one of the first people to get to board. We get on the plane, we sit down, and we are just like dripping sweat, out of breath.
I was very out of breath.
And but that was like the one travel but the girls loved it. They were like, we made it.
Yeah, they thought it was so fun. And it's like I wasn't actually scared we weren't gonna make it. I believed that we were, but even still, we had to hustle to make it.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Like if we had briskly walked, there's a chance that we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
But
it took a long time to board, but still.
You just never know.
You don't know.
So that was
yeah.
That was the only.
So that's the literal travel part of the recap. And then you asked about challenges. I think the challenge of, at least for me, traveling anywhere with kids is that we're out of our routine and we're out of our rhythm.
Yeah.
And that is honestly such a blessing of travel. It can be.
Yep.
Like that's one of the reasons we talked about the life-changing practice or habit of traveling is that like it gets you out of your comfort zone. You see something else. It provides perspective. It does all these great things. But with kids, I don't know if they're in it for perspective.
No.
You know, or they're not like really thinking about that after the fact. And so that's like always one of the challenges, especially with the time zone changes, you know, to go, it was a 5-hour difference this time around. And it
plugging
just,
your iPad before Tice.
Oh, sure. So yeah, I think it still went well. Like all things considered, I think they did a really good job. And again, stopping in California helped because I feel like we adjusted just briefly for a few days to like California time before we had to go to Pennsylvania time. So that was my main challenge. And then I would say the second one was like, you know, the kids got sick again. It was small and minimal compared to the flu. Yeah. But still.
It was like everyone was stuffy and it's the Northeast
snotty,
and it's winter. We're all in the same houses. So
you know,
it just happens.
It was just like, but thankfully it wasn't like, oh, we got sick and it ruined the flight. Like not at all. Yeah, I thought a lot about on the trip and I'm still thinking about it just like this past year, thinking about this coming year. I definitely, and we'll get into this, but I do feel more, and you talked about this one of the nights on the live event.
Yeah.
I think one night more than
both
the other.
live events are on the podcast.
Yeah,
bonus episodes.
Bonus. You talked about me feeling like less collapsed in and more like open, head up, able to actually think and dream, and there's so many reasons for that. Like I'm not pregnant. I don't have a newborn. I have my voice back. Yeah. Like we're not swirling around in the transition of moving and travel. Yep. It's not just one reason. It's not like I solved one thing and suddenly there she is, you know. But yeah, I thought about a lot of that on the trip. I thought about what I want the next year to be like. So it was good. I always enjoy that element of travel and that it gets me to like, I just have more time to think because I'm not like home doing the dishes, vacuuming, doing this, like doing your normal stuff. Yeah. And so I feel like I have just a little more brain space for what could be and what has been and stuff like that.
If you had to do an on the spot Mount Rushmore of the trip,
of the actual trip,
like
Disney
on mine too.
The events
on mine too.
Sonny's game.
I would add that to mine too. I didn't remember that one, but I would.
And then I forget, I don't know. I would just say like just the general, just that the trip was good. Yeah. Like it just was. Like I wasn't like yeesh. Yeah. At all.
Mine would be the Disneyland, and like there's probably even like 50 Mount Rushmores within Disneyland.
Yeah.
The live events were incredible. Because I said this to a bunch of people that night that came. Like people came from Texas and Indiana and Ohio and Florida, and like that's just wild to me. Like, and every time someone would tell me they came far, I would be like, was it worth it? You know, like, ooh, I hope so. They all said yes. So they either lied to me, or
they lied to your face.
They lied straight to my face, or it actually was worth it, which was really cool. But it was like, you know, like we read all the messages that we get. We see the comments and the reviews and all those kind of things. And like, they're super encouraging to me. Like I love those. And I mean that, but there was something very special about hearing people say that kind of stuff in person. Like you are a real person who says this podcast helps you in your marriage. And like, to me, it was like, man, that is awesome. And I remember like, I've always liked interacting with our customers face to face and our community face to face.
That's what we loved about our stores.
That's what we loved about the store. And so like, I needed that both in the live events and at the pop-up shop. And so I that was just like so encouraged by that. That was probably like the highlight of my trip, even over Disneyland for me. And then I got to have breakfast with a few friends, a few Swamp Dragons, which was really fun.
That's true. I would say that. I got to see people. Yeah. We got to go to Kim's. I got to go out to lunch at Kels.
Yep. And so like overall, it was just like such a great trip. Brooke mentioned Sonny's game. So I teach Sonny's Sunday school class. Here on Maui at the church we go to. And the week before we left for our trip, we played this game where like, it was so, like, to me, I was like,
simple.
To me, I was like, this isn't a game. This is just like 45 seconds of activity that will be forgotten forever. Like, that's how I thought. Like, I was like, no offense to people planning this kind of stuff, but I was like, this is going to be over.
It's 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
So it can't be too complicated.
So it's like you had this box that had a lid on it, and then in the box was like wrapped pieces of candy. And so the game was,
in quotes,
you held the box and you said
your mic.
what you wish would be in it for Christmas. And so you did that, and then you opened it and you grabbed a wrapped piece of candy, and then you passed the box along. So in Sunday school, I would honestly say this took like under 90 seconds.
It was not very many kids in the class.
And then they opened the candy and they ate it, and we were done. So we're on the airplane.
And so like, how many, almost 2 weeks later, I've never heard of this thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know what happened. She didn't come home and talk about it. I didn't even know she got candy.
Yeah.
We land in Harrisburg at like 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m.
Yeah.
We get in the car that we're borrowing.
No, I think it started on the airplane.
Oh, I missed that. I didn't hear about it till
okay.
the car. And suddenly she's talking about how she wants to play this game while we're here.
Yeah. And it's a game with a box that has a lid, and we need candy and we need to wrap it and all this kind of stuff. And so she just keeps talking about this game. She tells Mimi and Norky, which is what they call Brooke's parents, about this game. So we find a box. It takes me like 45 minutes to an hour to wrap this box, which is a little bit sad on my part. And then we go to the store, we buy a bunch of candy, we wrap the candy, we put it in the box. Brooke's brother's family come over, or some of them come over, and we sit in a circle and we say what we hope to get for Christmas. And then we open the candy and we all unwrap it at the same time, because that was a rule. Like, you just took the candy out
and just waited
and then waited for other people to go. I wouldn't even call it a game, honestly.
It's an activity.
It's an activity.
It's a Christmas activity.
Christmas activity that I think now we will do every year, because Sunny was so proud, and like, just like she was just beaming.
Yes.
And she loves giving people candy.
Idea.
Like, that is something that is so real for her. Yeah. Like, she had, my mom has this glass Christmas tree of chocolates in her house at Christmas time. And Sunny would take chocolates and put them in her like sweater pockets.
Her cardigan.
For everyone. And like
a candy cardigan.
And a chocolate cardigan. And every time she would see someone, she would give it to them. And so like, this game was so magical to her, and it was so simple.
I unpacked that cardigan yesterday, and there was still candy in the pockets.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And so like, it was an encouragement to me that like, our kids have ideas, and sometimes like, they're very plausible, and like, we do them, and sometimes they're like, I'm just like, really, you want to do that? Like, but like, sometimes I think leaning into those things, like, you never know the impact it will make.
Yeah.
And like, we could be playing this game for a decade now, all because of
just unwrapping candy, talking about what we hope to get, which was really funny because we played it 3 days before actual Christmas.
So we're like,
so my parents were like, I hope to get something so so specific. And they're looking at each other like, did you buy that for me? Like, did you buy it for yourself? There's no time to order it now.
Yeah, so that was really good.
That would be my Mount Rushmore of the actual trip if I needed to do that.
And so the trip went really well. We had tons of fun with family, friends, etc. But I think the highlight of the trip is Brooke and I on Christmas Eve, maybe even Christmas Day. It might have been past midnight at that point. It probably was.
It was a little bit of both.
Yeah. Laughing so hard that we are wheezing, and that like Brooke is crying, and trying to explain why she's laughing so hard, but I can't understand her because she's laughing so hard, which is like, because like, we slept in my parents' room and our kids slept on the floor in that room, because my brother and his family were there and my parents were there. So it's like a full house. So that's
can I set you up?
Sure.
Okay. So first of all, June had decided early on, maybe even in November, we were talking about it, that she wanted to do our Maui family Christmas when we got back. Last year when we did it before we left. We opened all their presents, and then we like left the next day, which I now understand she was like bummed about because she didn't get to stay and play with them.
Yep.
So this year, Maui Christmas was happening. And then we had a few
presents in Pennsylvania ready to roll.
I did, because there was a couple things I couldn't ship here. And so I was like, I'm just going to ship them to Yaya's house, and they'll just open them there, and we'll bring them back. That was last year. So this year we decide Maui Christmas is going to happen here. We're going to go to San Diego first. There might be a version of a San Diego Christmas. Then we'll go stay at my parents' house and we'll do their Christmas. And then we'll go to your family's house and we'll have a Christmas there. Then we're going to come home and do Maui Christmas. Like so many moments of like gift exchanging, like spread out over like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we stay at my family on Christmas.
First, we do our stockings before we leave.
We did our stockings here before we left. So we stay at my family's house up until Christmas Eve day. And then that afternoon we switch houses because your TJ's family typically has like a Christmas Eve party. That's when they do their big family Christmas.
Yeah. Like it's when the cousins all do names. They exchange gifts there.
That kind of stuff.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So we switched houses. We went to the church service, and then we went back to your parents. We do the cousin exchange.
For chaos.
We do games. We do all the things. By the time everybody's laying down, all the kids and the other two families had like left to go back to their house. It was at least 9:30, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Then we get
Christmas
the kids.
Eve.
Yes, Christmas Eve.
Can I interject a little bit of the story?
Sure.
There?
Yeah.
So while I'm laying June down, we're doing her blessing. She says, I can't wait
Might
to
even be 10:30.
Oh, yeah, it's late.
It's real late.
I can't wait to open gifts tomorrow on Christmas. And so I'm like, well, we're doing our Christmas when we get back to Maui. Yeah, but I can't wait to open gifts tomorrow on Christmas. And I'm thinking, what gifts? We left them all on an island 3,700 miles from here. So I kind of just like have that thought of like, what am I going to do?
And then you have the thought of that's a problem for future TJ.
Well,
because that is where your thought stopped. Which
yeah, it was just
shocks me.
Well, like it was like what am I going to do? That was kind of what I thought. Like what am I going to do? I'm sure Papu and Yaya have a gift for them.
But here's where we weren't sure.
So then about an hour later,
so you're downstairs.
I'm
you're
downstairs
trying to watch movies.
watching a movie
Sunny
with my dad.
Not Sunny. Daisy was struggling. That happens all the time. Anytime Daisy is struggling or crying, I accidentally call her Sunny. And so Daisy was struggling to go to bed. I don't think she was feeling well. So it was at least 11:15 by the time I laid down in bed. You were downstairs. You were like, I'm just going to like decompress in the quiet and maybe watch a movie with my dad.
Because like there are 30 or 20 some kids at this Christmas Eve party.
And we were missing your sister's family.
And so it's just like a loud, raucous event.
Yeah.
Like I'm overstimulated.
100%. And so I lay in bed and I was like, I'm going to just scroll Pinterest because that's my like, I just need a minute. That's what I look at because I don't feel anything when I look at Pinterest compared to when I look at Instagram and I'm like, ugh, the world. And so Pinterest, I'm like, everything's so beautiful. Yay.
It's amazing.
Crafts. Yarn. And so I'm scrolling and then I'm like, oh, tomorrow morning's going to be so fun. They're going to open. I didn't mail anything here. I don't have anything in a bag. Did Papa and Yaya get them something? And they do. They always get the kids something. But here was the big question mark. I knew that my
mom had bought all of her grandkids Walk in Love hoodies. Like she had done that for them and for, to support us, which was really sweet. And I'm like, there's no way that she bought our girls Walk in Love hoodies because they already have them and have multiple versions of them. So
we're having this moment
so Brooke texts me.
Right?
So Brooke texts me and is like, is there a gift for June and Sunny under the tree?
Can you go check?
So I go down and I'm like, I have my flashlight on my phone. I'm looking, I'm rummaging through my mom's wrapped Christmas presents under the tree at like 11:15 on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. Cannot find a tag for June and Sunny. And so then I'm like.
But you see tags for other kids?
I see tags for every other grandkid. And so I'm like, there's just no way. Like my mom is so thoughtful.
Like your mom who was listening, I
like,
did not actually believe there wasn't anything. But she was in bed and I was like, I'm not waking her up to be like, is there a gift?
But like maybe she just like, because there was a chance that like maybe she just forgot because she was doing this hoodie thing and focused on that. Like I just didn't like, I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to assume. And so I'm sort of having this like internal panic of like, our girls are going to be crushed.
If there's literally nothing.
And I'm like, I know my mom does stockings, but I couldn't find those either. So I was like.
Yeah. So while you're panicking under the tree, I'm Googling Target, already closed. Walmart, already closed. What stores are open on Christmas Eve? Like, it's just like trying to find, and I like Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean the day of Eve. I mean, like, it is now 11:28 and we are panicking. So you have the idea.
I say, I think Sheetz is open,
which is like a 24-hour nicer gas station where you can get food if you don't have one near you. Like, Sheetz is great.
Yeah. So I'm like, Sheetz is open. I know that because they're open. They're probably open on Christmas Day for people to get gas and stuff. So I'm like, I guess I'll go and check it out. And I know that like all gas stations now are, they're not like, convenience stores are stocked with like little things that your kids beg you to buy when you
like
walk through
touristy or whatever. Yeah.
And so so my dad and I are watching a movie. I'm like, hey dad, I'm going to go to Sheetz because we just realized that. And my dad has no idea if there's a gift for them or not. Like that's just not his wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, all right, I'll be back. Don't lock me out. I don't have a key to this house. So I drive to Sheetz.
I'm watching you because we share our location with each other, which if as a married couple, you don't do that, that has been so helpful. No. Oh,
game changers. Changes to the game such that the game can never be played the same way again.
Not to be used in a weird, like, where are you? Why aren't you home yet? Kind of a thing. But it has saved us so many texts of like, when will you be back? Or just, what are you up to? Have you left Target yet? Because I can just check and see. And then I'm like, oh, he's still there. And I believe that he's doing his best to come home when he needs to come home. Anyway, so I check your location and I can see that you're at Sheetz. I forgot there was one so close to your parents. I was thinking you had to drive to one of the other two. And so I was like, wow, he's already there. So I'm like refreshing your location every 30 seconds to see when you left while digging out as quietly as I can, wrapping paper, scissors, and tape from the room the kids are asleep in.
So I am in Sheetz. I walk in and there's a display of toys right there. And so I'm like, this is amazing. So there's like there's like an off-brand Squishmallows that I grabbed two of right away. And then I'm like walking through the aisles and I'm like, I don't want to do candy. We just played Sunny's candy game. We all have candy. We're good on candy. And then I find this little toy section and they have this like little backpack. And then like what I didn't know at the time was a Sheetz surprise toy. So it's like you open it and it has like Sheetz branded food in miniature form.
It's like there's a name for them, not the minis or.
Yeah. So it's like
all the tiny food the kids can collect now. It's like the off brand of that.
Yeah. So I as a 37-year-old man am walking through Sheetz on Christmas Eve at 11:30 with no, they don't have baskets, holding a handful of toys in my hand, feeling so judged by anybody in there because I look like a dad that has totally forgotten about his children up until the very last moment. My only saving grace was that there was self-checkout because if I had to
that's new. I've never been to a Sheetz.
If I had to put that pile
in front of someone,
the counter in front of
that shame pile.
And so because I was feeling so ashamed of myself, I bought a bag of chips to like try to offset. Like, I'm just here
for chips, but I figured I'd pick up this stuff too.
I figured I'd pick up 2 off-brand Squishmallows, a weird surprise toy, and these tiny little backpacks for my kids. I already got them other gifts. This is just bonus stuff.
I'm just here.
And I needed gas, so I just, I came in to pay for it.
Yeah.
But I didn't get gas. And so so I'm texting Brooke and I'm like, I got stuff.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'll meet you downstairs to wrap it.
So at 11:40 at night on Christmas Eve, we're wrapping toys from Sheetz for our girls so that they have something to open on Christmas Day. Then we go to bed and we are like...
No, your dad comes around the corner to go upstairs. That's what it was. He was like, I'm going to bed. See you in the morning. And it was then that he was like, did you get anything or something? Like a conversation started. And that's when you got giggling, telling him about how like the judgment you felt.
That I'm this deadbeat dad who's been gone for years. And now is on Christmas Eve buying toys to like
redeem yourself. This will make up for it. This will solve everything. So then we got giggling about that.
So it's like,
just the concept of just all of it, to be honest.
Just this off-brand Squishmallow.
Which your dad kept being like, how those Smushmallows doing? And I was like, I don't think that's the actual off-brand name, but I love it.
Oh, and so in bed, Brooke and I are just like wheezing, laughing so hard.
I'm re-laughing. What I'm trying to tell you through my quiet laughter and tears is I'm laughing about what you said to your dad, about how the shame you felt. And then I'm continuing to laugh about that character. And I can just picture it. Like when I picture it, it's black and white footage from way up in a corner. It's like a security cam footage. You walk in fast. You look around for a basket. There is none. You're like, forget it. I don't need a basket. I got arms. So then you start going through and you're just like, bam, 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 bam. Here's what I need. Swirls around, chips. You grab chips. You go to the self-checkout with shame.
Well,
everywhere.
and it's sheets. So it's like, it's not like you have like shopping bags like at Target. They're tiny little bags made for like a bottle of soda and a bag of chips. So
Yes.
I didn't even tell you this part. So I'm trying to stuff toys in this tiny
little like
bag.
sandwich
and so
bag.
I have like 2 or 3 of them that I've pitched together. But
I just couldn't get, she had gifts.
So,
I just couldn't get over
it's the hardest I've heard Brooke laugh like almost in my life.
just the visual image of the character of not even you anymore, just
it's
the
like,
character of like, it's the deadbeat Sheets dad.
And then if I didn't have to go to self-checkout, I get in a conversation with the person working. Like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I run a podcast where I kind of talk about parenting.
Like being really intentional, with our kids and just making sure like, we plan things in advance.
And so we wrap them all. We put them under the tree. Yaya does have a gift for him. So as they're unwrapping Yaya's gift, Brooke is stealing some of the presents back. So that we can use them on the airplane, because we always do like little surprises on the airplane because we did, so they loved them.
They were amped about the smushmallows.
They love the smushmallows
and the tiny backpacks.
and the tiny backpacks. And so,
and I mean tiny, like maybe 4 inches.
Like it's like a keychain backpack you would put on your real backpack.
Yeah.
So that was
Double
our
backpack.
Christmas Eve, Christmas morning.
It was so good.
So good. And so we're going to finish up this episode by just kind of talking about, it's a short topic, which is why we went into detail on our travel. But what we like to do at the end of every year is talk about the Mount Rushmore of the year, as well as like project what it might be for this next year. And so we did that last year. I just listened to the episode, which was like sort of hard for me because your voice was rough.
Yeah.
And so our projected Mount Rushmore from the beginning of the year for Brooke was having visitors.
Well, let me read mine.
Oh,
you read
sorry.
yours. What was your
So Mount Rushmore.
what you thought your Mount Rushmore of 2022 was going to be?
This was the first episode of last year, and I said I think it would be exploring Maui, having visitors, launching our new product, and making the type of content I want to make.
Okay. And then what was your actual
And so my
Mount Rushmore?
actual Mount Rushmore of 2022 was Brooke getting her voice back, living a full year in our new home.
Mm-hmm.
Brooke and I have more Christmas Eve style belly laughing moments. Like when I think of 2022 and our marriage, like we had a great year of marriage, but I feel like one thing that like seemed to rise to the top was like we laughed super hard together, like quite a few times.
Like real hard.
Like real
Not
hard,
just like, "Ah, that's
tears
funny."
in the eyes, like
Can't talk
moments. And so like I didn't realize that like that didn't go away from our marriage, but it definitely like,
But in a way,
it
did.
went to like the bottom level, like maybe once in 2021.
Yeah.
Maybe, but
Maybe.
a bunch of times this year.
Yeah.
One specifically that I can never share on the podcast,
Which is fine.
Which
It's
is
still
fine.
very funny.
And then our Christmas trip. So this is kind of a cheating Mount Rushmore moment
Okay.
because I only have 4. Our Christmas trip, which included Disneyland and the live events, which
Nice. That's true. Mount Mushmore,
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Smushmallowmore can be like umbrellas.
Yeah.
Like it's just, what are
Because
you carving into stone?
The live event,
The Christmas trip.
was incredible. The Disney trip was incredible. So the Christmas trip was really great because of those. So it was like exploring Maui, didn't really do that. Having visitors, that was great, but didn't make my list. Launching our new product, again, amazing, but didn't make my actual list. And then making the type of content I want to make also didn't make my list. So I was
Interesting.
over 4 in my guessing.
I was not over 4. My projected, what I thought 2022's list would be, was visitors, seeing more of Maui, Daisy turning 1, and making our home feel more like home.
And so we made our projected list, or we made our actual list before I listened. Like I made my actual list before I went back and listened to my projected list. So
correct.
Like we are
Correct. I didn't even know what my projected list was until today
what I'm trying
when
to
you
say.
answered
Yep.
it. Correct. So I had forgotten what I had said.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that my actual list is visitors. So that's 1 for 1.
1 for 1, baby.
The big umbrella of visitors that people come to see us. And I understand that they're also coming to Maui. It's not just us.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
But it's really cool that they do still come. It's still a, hefty trip and money and all the things. And so I
Yeah.
love that people come. So visitors, I had said more of Maui, which is interesting because I have living here 1 full year, but specifically on my list is our pool celebration.
Oh yeah.
When we went, which was kind of like, we've lived here a year, we're done with the school year combo celebration. When we got that day pass to a resort here.
Yeah.
That just like, as I really reflected back on the year, that really stood out to me, which is cool. Getting help, specifically Abby.
Abby.
Which it's like the umbrella would be like getting help, which allowed me to work more.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I still don't even work that much, but it's
Right.
just like I went from working almost never because of the swirl of life and baby and voice and all the things to actually having the capacity to like show up for work again, which was so awesome for me. But that wouldn't be possible without help. And right now that very specific help is Abby.
Yeah. Abby made the list. Nice.
Abby made the list. Yes. And then getting my voice back,
Which was kind of unexpected.
which is so interesting because neither of us had that on our projected 22. And yet we knew, even somewhat subconscious, like we knew another surgery was coming.
But it wasn't like you were getting it back. The surgery was just going to like improve it like that. And I think that's why it didn't make the list, that like the surgery and the recovery and the eventual redemption of your voice was so much more than we ever could have expected.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So
yeah.
So you went 1 for 4,
thought that was
or you
interesting.
went
I kind of went like
1.5 for 4.
Yeah. I mean the exact wording, but it was like, I was there. I wasn't too far off.
And so while we're doing this, let's project 2023. So this is the Mount Rushmore of 2023 projected.
Maybe we're just guessing.
Yeah,
we don't
we're
know.
just guessing 100%.
You want me to
Being
go?
so off though made me kind of rethink my projections. So go ahead. You go
Interesting.
first.
My projections are the business of Tiny Rhythms
Okay.
and all that it entails. Growing it, talking about it, maybe having another product. Like, again, big umbrella of just like that being something that's on our plate this year that we can finally talk about. Seeing more of Maui. Like, I think just another year from now, I'll be like, man, it was really cool. Just like all the places we got to go see and do. Some of them we've been to before, but I just feel like we have a little more capacity, to drive a little further, hike a little further, do a few more things. So that's on my list. Visitors. I'm just going to put the umbrella of visitors on again because we don't even have that many lined up for this year. I think in this moment, I know of 2. People tend to be like, we're coming in 2 months. And then it just kind of happens, which I love. But
Park is on that list somewhere.
3. And then
I'll probably text me the week before. I was like, hey, can I come next week?
I'll be like, yeah, sure, we're here. And then I have just like my health, the umbrella of my health.
Okay.
Improving.
You're going umbrellas. Smart.
Well, I
That's
think that
smart. Those are
I
smart
honestly
projections.
think though that's like kind of what Mount Rushmore is, unless we're getting really specific of like of your favorite travel snack food. And then it's like, okay, those are going to be specific. But when we're thinking about the year as a whole,
it's
I
a
do
smart
feel
move.
like
I'm
it's
just
these-
saying it's a smart move. You're thinking
Thanks.
ahead.
I'm into the umbrellas.
So
Yeah.
mine are super specific.
Cool.
January 7th. No.
Go ahead.
Okay, so mine are outdoor family time. I feel like now that we have more of a rhythm, we'll be able to experience the island more and just like be outside.
Which is what I
more.
mean kind of by seeing more of.
And not even like, oh, we're doing these like hikes and adventures, but like literally just being outside in our yard, playing with our kids, like going to the beach, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. Growing Tiny Rhythms, and again, because that one feels so full of potential. It's like when you grow a business, there gets to a point where it's like, okay, like there's not this like monumental growth anymore. You're just sort of like hoping for small scale growth. And so to have a new fresh business with a product that like we really believe in and that we've seen work in our lives, like I'm just super excited about that. I just
like
put
the early growth.
the early
like,
growth of like,
we're trying to really get from here to here in a year or whatever.
and we're going to spend the next 2 weeks sort of setting those goals, which is really nice. Working harder, like in all areas of my life. So I'll get into this later, but my word of the year is activate. And I feel like spoiler alert. And I feel like I've become sort of apathetic in the last year or 2 years, not because like my joy is gone or because I don't enjoy life or whatever. And apathetic might not even be the right word. Maybe screensaver mode or low power mode or just like, exhale mode of just like, gosh, like this is going to take effort and energy. Do I really have it in me or do I even really want to do it? Like, I think we all struggle with that to some degree. And so like I've felt like I've done that in the last year of just like, it's going to take a lot of work. Is it even worth it? Or just like giving a little bit of work into it and then not getting the result I want and being like, yeah, it wasn't worth it. Like instead of
I'd
just
say it's more that. Yeah, that
pursuing
or like
it and pushing through the whole time to like
Yeah.
grow it into something or to have it be successful. And so like work harder in like my fitness, my health, our businesses, our marriage, our like my relationship with the girls. Like I just want to like be more active. I want to activate in all ways.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like the Lord gave
Yeah.
me that word this year.
Yeah, because it's your umbrella of working harder on your list is not like a shameful like work harder, do more. Like it's not that at all. It's actually really positive. Like, yeah.
And then my
You
fourth
have
one,
good, really great work ethic. And I
Yeah.
feel like some of that's been like just off your radar a little bit.
or it's just been like squashed by like expectations, like, oh, this should be easier now, but it's not. And so I find myself, my expectations being squashed, even though like it's never easy to grow businesses. It's never easy to lose weight and get physically fit. It's never easy to like stay on your diet. It's not easy raising kids, but then I expect that and feel squashed because of it.
Yeah.
And so the other one, the last one is like, I call it, it's just kind of an umbrella again, podcast, like the podcast thing that we do, which includes podcast subscribers, live event 2.0, which is what I'm calling it. And just like feeling again, like I'm going to show up more and work harder and actually write notes and do things that help the podcast, maybe guests, maybe bonus episodes, all those kind of things. Like I just feel like that's going to be a main primary focus of the year. And that is both because like we've seen good results from it, but also like meeting people in person, talking to them was like so inspiring to me that like this thing matters and the Lord has given it to us. So let's steward it well and honor the people that show up every week and do this with us. So those are my projected Mount Rushmore.
And do you feel like, sort of off topic, but not at all, like are words of affirmation a thing for you? Like would you, because there's 5 love languages, which we don't have to list them, but like, is that, do you think there was an element of that? Like, or were you just feeling more empty and discouraged than you thought you were?
It was probably more of that. Just like, you know, like we had a rougher year of business. And so it's like, okay, maybe that's because no one cares. Like that's always sort of the fear for me. Like maybe people,
that's always your
maybe people
share
have
the furthest
stopped
back. Yeah.
caring because eventually that could happen or it might happen, or I've seen it happen in other businesses, and like, that's how businesses die. And so like, and again, I see the messages and I see the reviews and like, I those do encourage me, but there was just something special about, and like, you know, we're super isolated here. Like we live in a remote place. So we don't get to like, you know, like there were interactions when we lived in Pennsylvania. A lot of people like, hey, you're DJ, like, you know, and so like,
just like being out and about.
Yeah. And so like there was an element of that like it's gone completely.
Right.
And so being in person,
just like more frequent and random, if you will, touch points of like, hey, you're engaged with what we do.
Because like what we do is completely on the internet. And so there is a in-person element that I miss, that I really did enjoy with the store. And so to have that in the live event was so encouraging. So the podcast feels like it was almost like a affirmation of like, the podcast matters. It's been given to you. It's a gift. Use it well. And I don't know if I don't think I've used it poorly, but I don't think I've unwrapped it and used it as well as I can, or we should. And so that is sort of the inspiration that I feel to it. And so the reason that we do the Mount Rushmore like of the year and the projection of the next year is like, it's just good language to talk about your year in an easy way. Like I asked people this question. I asked them, what was your Mount Rushmore of the last year? And what was your peak and valley of the year? And people had answers for that. It wasn't like, hey, how's it been? Oh, it's been good. You know, like that would be the go-to answer for most people. Like, oh, I've been good.
Christmas
like
is crazy.
You know, like, oh, we've been super busy. And it's like, you have no intentionality with a question like that. And so the reason we talk about things in terms of Mount Rushmore or peaks and valleys is like, it gives someone a starting point to then have a deeper, more robust conversation. And obviously, like if you're asking someone you love what your peak and valley of the year is, like, you want to know because you care for them. And so like
Yeah.
we heard lots of peaks and valleys. We heard, struggles with parenting or grieving loss or like,
Yeah.
frustration in business or like just feeling joyless. Like, and then we heard a lot of peaks of like, this was a great year for our marriage and our business, or we had tons of fun with the kids, or we had a new kid, or like,
Yeah.
and so like, it was just such a much more robust conversation we had with close friends and family
Yeah.
that like you don't have if you say, hey, how was your year?
Yeah. I don't know whose voice I'm hearing in my head, but somebody's line that I listen to or read is ask better questions.
Yeah.
Because I can hear it in my head right now. That voice going, ask better questions, like, which is exactly what you're saying. And it's so powerful when we do ask better, more intentional questions.
And so we met a lot of you who are husbands and wives who listen to the podcast, or the wife does and then fills in the husband, or it never happened vice versa. It was always like either they both listen or wife
she
listens
listens,
and gives him the
recap,
Spark Notes or Cliff Notes or whatever it was called back when we
think
used
both,
to cheat in high school.
right?
Yeah, I didn't read the book. I read the Spark Notes, Cliff Notes.
But Cliff Notes I've seen that.
Yeah, Cliff Bars is also a thing too, and Clifford. So
Oh,
a lot of cliffs, literal cliffs.
they're here. You could drive off of them.
There's so many beaches here.
Oh, so good. It's an
an
island.
island surrounded by the ocean. So yeah, that's gonna happen. So as you recap your year, I would ask the question: what are the peaks? What are the valleys? Hopefully there are more peaks than valleys, but sometimes that's not true, and it's the other way around, which is a rough year. But you need to
call it what it is.
To grieve that and
Name
talk
it.
about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I would do, what are your Mount Rushmore of the year? Like, what are those 4 things we're carving into stone? So when we look back at 2022, we see them and remember them. And I would write these things down. Like, thankfully we have this podcast, so we can record it and go back to it and listen to it and like remember that way. But like, what a helpful, and that's what like Jeremy and Audrey Roloff's products are so helpful. Like the Christmas journal, the marriage journal, like they're a tangible way to like remember things and look back and be like, oh, that's what we carved into stone. And that was a good year. That was a hard year. And then project for the year. Like ask yourself, what do you think 2023, like what do we, at the end of the year, what are we going to carve into stone this year?
Yeah. Or what do I hope I'm carving into stone? It's like, what matters most? What do I want to carve in?
Because those are all just super helpful tools and language to help you live a more full life, which is what we're hoping to do here. For us, we haven't mentioned the peak and the valley, but for us, it was both the same.
Yeah.
Our valley was, our peak was Brooke getting her voice back.
Yeah.
Something that sort of like felt unbelievable. And like, honestly, I could weep at it if I really talk deeply about it. So I'm just going, because we're about to stop, so I don't want to do that.
Yeah. We're just going to glaze right over that.
We're going to glaze right over that. But 100% the peak was like Brooke can talk. Even just listening to that short bit of episode 1 of the year and hearing the struggle in your throat and just like knowing everything that entails, like it's hard for me to listen to now.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, man, what a miraculous thing God has done that we almost, like I've prayed for it our whole marriage.
Yeah.
And to see it come to fruition 13 years in, like it's a miracle. It'll get you. And the valley was on the flip side of that. After her 7 days of voice rest and her speaking and just being like,
"Yee,
that doesn't sound
that's not
like,
how it normally sounds after voice rest."
And then like the month plus of emotions of just like, this might not ever come back.
Yeah.
And what does that make our lives look like? What do our jobs look like? What does Brooke's relationship with me and the kids look like? And just all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was it for us. And so talk about it, ask those hard questions, because not really hard, just honestly intentional questions. And then
somebody's voice is saying, ask better questions on my shoulder.
And then we'll end with the other practice that we do. And we have other practices, like we're going to spend the next 2 weeks off our phones, setting goals, talking about real specific things.
Yeah.
And we can share some of those things as we do them over the next few weeks of the podcast. But then the other practice that we do is like, we set a word for the year, or we ask the Lord, what is the word for the year? That's probably more of the practice of like, and we
what
hope
keeps rising to the surface? What do I hear when I ask that question?
And so
what can I just not shake, even if I'm like, duh,
I don't want it to be that.
The word.
Yeah. And so for me, I couldn't shake it, was activate, which is like such a weird random word. Like I actually looked for art. I was like, I want to hang that word on my wall. So I typed in Google, word art that says activate. It doesn't exist. because I feel like it's
I will make you something for
I
your
want
wall.
to just like do a cricket of the word just straight across there. But like it's so random and it like almost doesn't even make sense. But it's like
It feels very like
and everybody that I've said it to is like, Holy Spirit, activate, activate, activate. Which I like honestly that adds up.
Oh, that's
like,
funny.
Because I do want to just
It feels very like it's like a corporate retreat. Like,
Yes.
are you going on activate?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
and
It just feels.
But it was a word I couldn't shake because I feel like it encompasses so well all the things that I feel like I've kind of laxed in lately. I just need to reactivate myself and engage because it was almost engaged, but that wasn't quite it. Because like I am engaged.
You are. Yes.
But it's like there's a deeper part of myself that has been deactivated.
Yeah.
And that is what needs to be reactivated.
Wow.
In a synergistic way.
That is not a word. My word of the year that I couldn't shake is growth, which I'm okay with that word. I think the like deeper roots, if you will, to that word for me are like, it's a little bit of the progress, not perfection. Like if I can just grow in any forward motion in a lot of different areas, like that is what I desire for my year, that it's a year of growth and moving forward and like doing things like that and like expanding a little bit, more than like, I hope I get this and this done. And I hope I do that. Like growth or personal growth. It's just like all of it. I hope everything just grows this year. I hope my marriage grows, my business grows, my health, like all the things. That's my word. That's
good.
It's good. I haven't done all the like kind of unpacking of it and ways that I hope to grow. Like I'll write that as my big umbrella word and then I'll get more specific.
Yeah.
I love the two questions of, because like I've already started working on these in addition to the peaks and valleys, and then the Mount Rushmore and the projected Mount Rushmore is like what worked and what didn't this year. That's so helpful for me. Yep. And I'll do it like I can go big picture. I can get real specific. What worked and what didn't in my beauty counter business. What worked and what didn't in homeschooling. Like, and really break it down. Yeah. And then I'm adding on this year. Is there anything I'm doing that I don't need to do? And it can be really simple little things. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast and she asked that question and I was like, oh, that's good, because I feel like I'm already pretty aware of like, okay, on my plate, off my plate. Like I feel like I do a good job of all that. And yet her example was like, do I really need to cook a full meal 5 nights a week? Which I'm not saying that I do, but that was her example. She's like, could we do a snack meal 2 of those nights of just like, am I just doing something that I just wouldn't have to, that could scale back to allow room in other areas for other things? So I'm adding that to my list this year of questions.
Good. That's really good. And so one thing that I always put pressure on myself, which I'm not doing this year, is to have all the goals ready and rocking and rolling by January 1st, which is today, the day that we're recording. And
I gasped when you said that and I reached over in the car. I've never been more proud of you.
So we're taking off the phone. I actually turned my phone off. I have my iPod phone. So it's basically just a glorified iPod. So I can listen to music in the car and share songs of the week on the podcast. So I'm just turning my phone off for 2 weeks, but then we're going to do 2 weeks again midway through the year. So the last few years we've done the whole month of January, but this year I just felt like it needed some tinkering and like I wanted to have the refresh 2 times. And so, I told Brooke yesterday in the car, I was like, let's take this 2 weeks to really like envision and plan the year instead of just like rushing through it in like a 20-minute meeting while the kids are watching a show.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do. And so the other thing that we're going to do this year to kick off the year, which is like the first time we've ever done anything like this, is we're going to read through a book on the podcast. And so got a couple
we're not literally going to read it word for word. Yeah. That might be illegal.
It's called The Voice of the Heart by Chip Dodd. It's been super impactful in both of our lives. I told Brooke it's going to be a yearly read. And so I read it for the first time last January when we were off our phones. And so this January I was like, let's introduce it. We've talked about it tons on the podcast, but let's like really introduce it. And so a couple of questions people asked are like, what's the schedule? I'll post it in the show notes. We're going to basically do 2 chapters a week. Another question is like, do I need to read the book? No, you don't need to. Like we reference things all the time on the podcast that you probably haven't read or listened to or all that kind of stuff. Like it'll still feel very like a normal podcast, but I think it would be super beneficial for you to either read or listen to the book. Like it is a super short, skinny book that
you could listen.
Has been incredibly impactful in our emotional health. and our ability to express our emotions accurately.
And I think knowing that some people are reading along will make me feel less like I need to just read the book live.
Yeah.
Because it's all so good and helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll post the link to the book. It's $14 on Amazon. I think it's free if you have a Kindle membership. I don't know what that is, but there's some version of Kindle that makes it free.
Oh, okay.
Or you can do the audiobook. And I'll post the link to the book and the schedule of how we're going to do it. And this is the first time we've ever tried something like this. So
I'm excited for it.
I think it'll be really cool. And I think it's such a good foundational book into like learning language and learning how to express emotions accurately, that like what a great thing to start the year off of with, especially if you're
it's like
one of the people that we talked to at the live event that's like, how do I talk about emotions? Which was a question that we got. And like, or we got, I can talk about them, but he can't hear them. Like, we got some of that stuff. And so I just feel like it could be very impactful for your marriage or your future marriage, or like especially with kids, like learning that accurate language for them at an early age will just benefit their whole lives.
Oh, so yeah. So that when they're struggling through something, I'm actually saying the most accurate chair behind. Are you maybe feeling this instead of projecting what I might be feeling, which is like maybe not what they're feeling at all.
So buy the book. It's $14.
The book is nice because you can highlight and go back to and reread. As much as I'm an audiobook listener, I've started books like this and then I'm like, I
got to highlight all this.
I can't.
But we're super stoked. And so I was like, am I giving people enough time to order the book? Realizing that like we deal with Hawaii Amazon, which is like 2 weeks for almost everything.
Right. I was like, oh wait, Prime still exists for other
tomorrow.
people.
That's incredible. Or the next day. So
it's a crazy world.
We are excited to be back. We're excited for the new year. There's no shortage of excitement here, at least on this side of the microphone. How about on that side? I feel like you're more excited for this year than you have been for almost any year I've ever known you.
Probably because I can talk.
And
which is like, that's a whole other episode that I'm sure we'll get into this coming year of just like, not like when you're in it, you don't even fully let yourself acknowledge how in it you are and how detrimental or impactful it can be on your life. And there's part of that that's very real and true. And like, probably it's like a self-preservation, but it's just interesting to be on the other side of it and come out of it and be like, man, I can just attribute so many positive things now to being like, oh, it's because I can talk.
Yeah.
It's because I can communicate. Shocker.
Awesome. So we're super stoked for 2023. Hope you are as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making us a part of your week.
Okay, I love you. Bye.